else. Gosh. Okay, wait, before we start. Okay, here we are. Okay, so usually what I like to do is just like a Q&A and talk to people because preparing things and speaking coherently is not like what I do, but I react well. But for this to work, someone's going to have to ask a question. I think there's mics right here. If you want, if you got questions, and if not, we can just go and we'll get some dinner. We can all go to the Brazilian steakhouse and just see what they do. Yeah. Okay, here we go. All right, great first question. Go ahead, sir.
I was wondering if you could tell me what your impression was of the Dresden TV show and how that happened.
Okay, what was my impression of the Dresden TV show? Was the question, and how it worked out. It was okay. I actually went up to the show and was there with them for a week while they were shooting it, and also while they were shooting the pilot, which was cool. I was stunned by how many people it takes to make a television show. I mean, it really does take a small army. They had about 100 people on the cast and crew, who were shooting that show, so it was a bit busy. That said, the show that they wound up making, it went off the air before they could do anything really, really horrible. A lot of different things happened behind the scenes that I think really hurt the show a lot. I mean, originally, the way they had it originally written was the show was going to cover the first 2 books during the first season, and they were going to interweave the plots and then have a big crazy thing with the climaxes happening all at the same time at the end of the season, which would have been awesome and neat. But then 2 weeks before they started shooting, they grabbed a different person who had just got done with, he had just got done producing on Charmed, and they put him in charge. The show was shooting in Toronto, and they put him in charge from Los Angeles. So you can imagine how well that worked. That worked out. The people who were doing all the actual work and actually on the show were, they were kind of beholden to this guy back in LA, who would get changes to the next day's shooting into them by 9 p.m. LA time, which was standard. But 9 p.m. LA time is midnight in Toronto, and so what that meant was by the time communication got done, it was 1 o'clock in the morning before they had to start making decisions about the shooting the next day. And then by the time they called actors, it would be 2 or 2:30 because they had to clear everything with directors and producers first. And so like Terrence Mann would get a call at 3 o'clock in the morning and say, "Hey Terry, we're sorry that you haven't seen your family in 3 weeks and you're supposed to go home tomorrow, but there were rewrites from LA, and so we need you on the set in half an hour." Like that. So sorry, you're not going to get to visit your folks. So there were all kinds of things like that got thrown in the way. But that said, I think the people who were actually working on it, who were actually there doing the job, did the very best job they could given the limits they were handed by the studio. Now, if you want me to talk about how the studio handled things, well, I didn't like that as much. But the folks who were there, they did a good job. So there you go. Yes, sir. Yeah, can we do that? Can we kind of shift the line over this way? I think that's a fine idea. Expert initiative, well done.
Mine's a writing question.
Writing question, excellent.
What's the best way to start an origin story with your character that already has power to some degree?
The best way to start an origin story with a character who already has power, you show them doing things with their power. I mean, that's kind of how you do it. I mean, if otherwise it ain't an origin story much. It's some other kind of story. I mean, the origin, the oh my God, we're so tired of it origin story of every superhero is, goodness, I have powers, and here's how it all happens. But I mean, if you go look elsewhere, I mean, you look. I think Wonder Woman probably did a really good job with an origin story. I mean, I can't offhand think of any superhero origin films that really clearly did a better job than Wonder Woman did. I think Wonder Woman and Deadpool are at the top right now. So. But anyway, there you go. Yes, sir.
Mine is actually a supremely Spanish question. First Lord's Fury era Tavi against Cold Days era Dresden. Laws of magic suspended. Who wins in a flat-out fight?
Nobody gets any magic, it's just a fist fight?
No, I mean, like, you know, the whole you can't kill people with magic, do not swim against the tides of time, do not open the outer gate stuff. Dresden's not going to be getting pulled up by the White Council after this.
Oh, I see. So he's no holds barred, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
On Alara, so that the Furies can be involved, I assume.
Well, on Alara, Toby wins.
And elsewhere, Dresden, I assume.
Yeah. On Alara, Lord Wolverinus, he wins that fight. So.
Makes sense.
Okay, no problem. I'm not sure how well Toby would do in Chicago, though. So it's 50 of one and half 100 of another. Wow, I really blew that metaphor. Sorry. It's been a long day. Hi.
Hi. My question is there ever going to be a bigger role for Mr. the Cat?
Will there ever be a bigger role for
Is he
Mr. the
gonna,
Cat?
like, be instrumental in one of your?
I would like you to define for me what is bigger or more important than a cat. particularly when you already are the cat. Mr. is already the pinnacle of evolution and the point of the universe, so why should he change that? Otherwise, all those humans would have fed him for nothing. But he kind of will at the end of things. We'll have a little more drama for Mr. as we get towards the end of the story, I think. So, all right. Hey.
Yeah, no. So my question is, as I've been reading through the books again recently, I had the question of, so since you haven't given a name to her yet, the parasite that just barely finally got out of Dresden's head has been giving him these migraines for books and books. But previous to that, you had Lashiel that was stuck in his head for a long time with no adverse effects. Why was Lashiel not giving him headaches and causing cramps with sharing the same headspace, but Parasite did?
Because the parasite was growing and doing things. Lashiel already knew what she was doing. The parasite's just like, oh, look, new memories, new things to feed on, new awesome things to make me bigger and stronger, and more experiences from Harry to add to her nutrition as she was growing up. Although we can just go ahead and call her Bonnie. Her name is Bonea, which is a Scottish name that means beautiful. Harry calls her, but Harry named her that because Bone Ea. And his sense of humor is not terribly sophisticated. So, but her name's Bonnie. And there's I know there's plenty of folks in here who have already read the first chapter that got out. So, although I'm not sure, was she even in that?
No,
she wasn't. No, that's right, because we was on the beach. Yeah. At the point where Harry's on the beach, Bonnie and Maggie are at home trying to make pancakes. Because Bonnie's got like an encyclopedic knowledge of things, she just has no idea whatsoever how they apply to the actual world. So she's got all this information, and Maggie can hold her up, and Bonnie can scan the context of the kitchen and say, I have 387 different recipes for pancakes that we can make from all this stuff. But no idea which one is going to be the one that will actually taste good and be practical and doable, like that, so. And plus, she doesn't realize a lot of different things, like if milk is inanimate, why is it moving? And stuff like that. Pancakes are inanimate! Very good, Bonnie. I'm glad you learned something new today. Yeah, pancakes are inanimate. But anyway, that's why the baby spirit was growing and learning and taking in new stuff, and none of that is very conducive to being inside your skull while it happens. So
if Bonnie was fully grown and more cognizant, she could have been in Harry with no repercussions.
Well, I would hardly say no repercussions, but
not the massive migraines and the killing him and.
Yeah. I mean, not so much with that as much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Hi.
Oh, the microphone came to me. Awesome. Okay, so I also have a bit of a Spanish question.
Okay.
Harry rebuilds Little Chicago on Demon Reach. What happens?
If Harry rebuilds Little Chicago on Demon Reach?
Yes.
Oh God. Yeah, I think CNN is going to cover that one. Yeah. Because the island is just it's full of horrible negative things, and so anything that you build out there kind of has all this horrible negative energy associated with it, and so ugly things are going to happen as a result. Yeah, I mean, that's what would happen. Although, I mean, my God, how do you, what is the, like, I tried to think, what is the worst thing Harry could do that is perfectly practical for him, and yet would convince anyone who actually looked on it that, yep, supervillain. And megalomaniacal model down to the last ridiculous little detail of Chicago is like, that is exactly the way to do that. It's like, yeah, that Lex Luthor would have that in his basement,
So if Harry were to do this thinking, oh yeah, sure, I'll give Dean Rich intellect juice over Chicago, oh crap, I just caused all this evil to happen, could be a thing.
Well, yeah, that could be a thing.
Okay, just wondering.
But no, we've got, I mean, after all, I mean, we still have there's a lot of stuff to come yet. But trust me. But yeah, no, yeah, Harry wouldn't do that out there. Oh my God. Well, let me rephrase that. Not even Harry would do that out there. Hi.
Hi, I have a writing question.
Okay.
I love the metaphors that you put into his narrative, and like there's a fight scene where he describes himself being tossed in a washing machine, and then the bad guy puts in more quarters, so the fight's not over. And is that something that you just come up with naturally, or is that a particular part of your writing you had to work hard on?
I don't know. It's sort of hard for me to separate out distinct elements because as the more you do as a writer, when you're getting started, it's easy to isolate certain elements of your writing that I want to work on this, I want to work on that. But as you go, you have to have a more and more holistic approach to what you're doing for building the entire story. I mean, you no longer, you kind of start running out of the ability to distinguish between, okay, this is plot, this is character, this is world building over here. I mean, because you have to weave them together so much that it starts blurring and becoming harder to tell the difference. Especially as the more you do something, the more you kind of assemble it and do it instinctively in your subconscious, rather than actively stopping and thinking, okay, what is the actual plot that I'm going to be doing? What is his goal? And now I do always go back to that stuff whenever I run into a problem in the story where I'm reading back over a chapter and saying, this is just not working. Why isn't it working? And the answer, like 99% of the time, is I forgot one of the basic elements that is important to fundamental writing. You know, it's like I did not have the proper conflict in the scene. Harry doesn't have a clearly defined goal in the scene, etc. So that, I mean, it gets harder for me to figure out, well, where did my metaphor work start to pick up and so on. So.
Yeah, I think it's impressive how like you're able to expand into such brilliant new directions with each book. Is that also something that just got easier as you went on?
I'm not convinced I've done anything brilliant yet, but no, I mean the more stuff that I'm doing, I mean that all came in and laying in the groundwork in the very foundation. I mean, if I hadn't planned it out from the start, you know, where I was going and where he's going to end up and a bunch of the cool things that are going to happen along the way, then I wouldn't know and I wouldn't be able to pace myself to get the effect of the story that I want for the reader. But that's been my whole giant secret advantage of the Dresden Files is that I know where it's going to end, and you know, so I know how to ramp it and scale it up appropriately so that we're getting a little bit more, you know, the theme music is becoming more intense each time we go because I know where I want it to end up. So I mean, that's not. I feel like I'm cheating because I did that when I was 25. I barely remember that person at this point, you know, 20 years later. But he seemed to be onto something, so I'm just going to stick with his plan. I mean, I was dumb and arrogant at 25. Oh my gosh. I've been trying to learn and to look back at that kid's plan and go, well, what was it you thought would be awesome? Oh, that would be kind of awesome. Okay, yeah, we can work with that. And then I just try to add my experience to it as a concept art.
So Demon Reach was like planned really early on, or not?
Demon Reach came in around about the time I was writing Blood Rights, because I was trying to get a look at the shoreline of Chicago or of Lake Michigan near Chicago around on Google Maps right after they really started with Google Earth, you know, and as I was scanning over, there was like a square mile of Lake Michigan that just had a red prohibition symbol on it, and then underneath it said no map available, and I'm like, there, Magic Island, there. We need it. Hi.
So I was wondering, every single book other than Changes has a 2-word title. Was that on purpose?
Well, it the change in the pattern for changes was on purpose, because I was going to blow everything up, and I wanted to foreshadow that a bit.
Okay, and also, do we ever get to see Thomas wield Amarachius again?
Do we ever get to see Thomas wield Amarachius again? I don't know. And I don't want to hear any Amarachius jokes from you, Kitty Corral. Maybe? I mean, you know, if he still has fingers. I mean, he's having a rough time, this book, guys. That's all I'm going to say for right now. So. Okay. Yes, sir.
Thank you for coming to Salt Lake Comic Con, by the way.
Oh, I love Salt Lake Comic Con. This con has like a really, really unusually high incidence of dogs and babies, and I like those things. So I always enjoy coming here. There's like, because you know, dogs, man, they're so much better than people. And I'm that guy who's at the party playing with the dog instead of actually interacting with other human beings.
Well, as another Roman history nerd to another Roman history nerd, who is your favorite figure in Roman history, from the kingdom to the republic to the Principate to late imperial?
It's a toss-up between Cicero and Caesar.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're such opposites in everything they did.
Exactly.
And so you know, I love those two. And I also love, who was it? Was it Crassus? Carthago Delenda-esque at the end of every one of his speeches in the Senate. You know, it's like, that guy's driven. Okay. But yeah, of those two. All right, thank you very much. Hey, man.
Hi. I am here on behalf of my friend. He is the one that got me hooked on the Dresden Files years ago.
His fault, got it.
Yes.
Yeah, it was right until high school. Didn't like reading because they already had the assigned reading assignments. So I was like, oh, more books? What? No. Gave me Stormfront. Went back to him. I was like, I need the next like 7. All right. So I'm here with a question for him. Pharaohbacks. Dragons in general, are we ever going to see them back in the Dresden Files?
Oh, why would I possibly have an entire book planned that's got about the fight with the dragon in book? But I really couldn't say. I'd have to consult my notes. Okay. Hi, hello. What a gorgeous outfit.
Thank you. I'm here from British Columbia, Canada.
Oh, hello.
Hello. We had a big group discussion of what I would ask you, because I'm the only one that traveled here. We want to know whether or not you've started talking to Netflix, because sex vampires and Dresden Files, come on.
To Netflix? I'd be happy to talk to Netflix. I would have to, it's putting a show together is like a big deal, and you kind of have to have somebody who's got some weight behind it to get the ball rolling.
Well, that's what we were sort of thinking, because, but you're not, are you tied into a contract with Sci-Fi?
No,
Wonderful.
I've got all the rights now. So it's just a matter of finding somebody who thinks they can do the project and who wants to do it. And I'm sure it'll come along eventually. And there's a couple of different studios who are interested right now that I can talk about. For a long time, the property was with the Donners, with Richard Donner and Company. But damn it, Logan did really well, and so did First Class, and so now they're continuing with X-Men stuff.
Yeah.
But when X-Men was tanking, they were looking for other things to jump onto, and at one point, Richard Donner came out of his office and said to the offices, it's like, hey, did anybody out here have ever heard of the Dresden Files? Do you know what that is? And like 6 people in his office, they're mostly college age people, whipped out paperbacks from their desk. So that was a near thing. That could have worked. That could have panned out very well, but that was not to be. But that's okay. There's life is long. We'll see what happens.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Hey, hi. Okay, so I have a really specific question.
Please.
Okay. So I've noticed every time Toot Toot has shown up, he seems to be getting a little bit bigger.
Right.
And I'm just wondering, is that all the pizza? Or is that because he's like the General of Zagar?
The Fae, kind of in general, the Fae are sort of very malleable creatures. They're water creatures. They're very malleable. And Toot Toot is essentially what happens when a Fae starts progressing through the ranks. And that's what he's doing, because he's been doing all this stuff that has significant supernatural and moral and ethical weight. You know, he's risking his life to defend Dresden against monsters he has no business fighting. That kind of thing. And you know, and as he keeps doing that, and as he keeps helping and helping to push the balance of the balance of forces in the various books, that's got a weight, that's got a significance. It's reflected in how he's growing and how he's growing in power. And he's growing in power not only among among just the Zalord's guard, but also among the Fae in general. He's getting bigger and bigger. It is because of Dresden. You know, at some point he's going to be looking at himself, going, "Man, I want to be little." You know, but he's taking on all this responsibility. So yeah, he's just getting. I mean, the she come from somewhere.
Well, thanks a lot.
Very welcome.
How's it going? I was wondering if you could answer two questions. One is, how did you come up with the idea of how your airships worked?
Uh-huh.
And then the second question is, when can we expect your next book?
Okay. All right, let's do this and just get this out of the way right now. The next book that's coming out is going to be Briefcases. It's the short story collection. It includes Zoo Day, which is Harry's first day as a dad with his daughter. And it's actually one of those 3-part Russian doll stories where you get a different story each time you go through. So the first time you go through Harry's point of view, and then the second time you go through Maggie's point of view of the same story, and then the third time you go through Mouse's point of view of the same story. And you realize who the real hero is around here. But that'll be out next June-ish. And then the next one after that will be Peace Talks. Peace Talks will be out 8 to 12 weeks after that because this is my last con of the year and I can go home and work. And so it'll take me 8 to 12 weeks to hopefully to finish off the book, and then I'll give that to the editor, and they'll be like, well, it's about time, and they'll publish that. And then we'll be looking at the next Cinder Spires about 6 months after that. 6 to 8 months after that will be the next Cinder Spires. That said, how did I come up with the airships? Well, first of all, I said, I'm going to make airships, but I need to make them as much like Age of Sail sailing ships as I possibly can, because that's way more fun. And because I'm doing a Horatio Hornblower anyway, so we'll just draw from that. So I sat down and I said, okay, well the real thing about airships that's hard is I don't want balloons, so I've got to come up with something else to deal with the whole gravity, the whole gravity guideline that we all seem to adhere to. And so I said, okay, well, I'm gonna need to do a couple other cool things. So we're just gonna need some crystals, and we're gonna need some magic crystals that will get the job done. Although I don't think it's really a fantasy story, but you won't see that until later. But I didn't think Alera was a fantasy story either. I considered that in science fiction myself, but I did. I'm weird, okay? But that was basically how I was thinking it through. It's like I wanted to be able to have these broadside duels in aerial combat. So I tried to come up with a propulsion system that would give me a reason to have sails. Except you can't just put sails on one side of an airship because it become unbalanced and you won't do it. So you have to have them on multiple sides of the airship. So it's like, okay, so we're gonna need ventral masts as well, and then we're gonna need masts on the port and starboard side of the ship too. So that was, coming up with all that was a whole lot of fun.
Thanks for coming.
Hey, you're very welcome.
So
I'm suspicious of this one.
So Kitty is not allowed to make Amaracus jokes, but you never said. I reached out to Reddit before this and asked them what are the questions that they would most be interested in hearing from you at these types of panels. And one of the ones that stuck out to me is, are there any characters or creatures that we can look forward to in future books without getting into I'm not going to tell you territory that you want to share with us now?
Okay, yeah. Future books. Let's see. I've already talked a couple of times about book 17, Mirror Mirror. I'm just calling it Mirror Mirror because I'm full on just stealing the old Star Trek episode. Right? There's going to be eye patches and goatees and everything. So that's going to be 17, and we're going to be doing some other stuff in the future. We're going to see what the gods are doing because Harry's now attracted their attention by knocking over Ares' woodshed, basically, and so the other gods are going to get into it. That'll be in the professional wrestling one. I like wrestling. Why?
Heel turn. Heel turn. We all want it to be called heel turn.
What?
Heel turn.
Heel turn?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what the internet wants.
Oh, well, God, the internet wants it. Certainly that is a force like unto destiny itself. And then, but we're going to be doing all kinds of stuff that I'm still working on. There's going to be more outsiders coming in. We still got to do the kaiju. It's going to, there's lots of stuff. Yeah, the trilogy, the trilogy, this whole, the world doesn't know there's magic stuff. Nah, that's over. Yeah, so. Okay, that's, I mean, I don't know if you guys knew this. I'm gonna write 20 or 21 case books like we've had so far, and then at the end, it's gonna be like this giant apocalyptic doorstop trilogy to capstone the series. So that's when I get to do the really crazy stuff. But thank you.
So I have a random question from a very early book, Fool's Moon.
Okay.
There is a side character that was depicted in such a way that it kind of defined how much I love the early Dresden books there. Is there ever going to be any mention or return of Chauncey the Crab?
Yeah, Chauncey. Yes, actually, but not till later on.
That is all I need to
Okay,
know.
now you know. How you doing?
Doing all right.
Good.
Justin from the Dresden Files podcast, repping Albion, the Verminocitors today. So I wanted to ask you about the Cinder Spires.
Okay.
How much are we going to get into their ancient history, and does it have anything to do with Master Ferris' quip about Fury and the Olympian Commodore? If you remember that.
Oh, okay. We'll get into the history and so on. The Olympian Commodore was a setup for book 2, The Olympian Affair.
Sure.
The Olympian Affair, essentially, the Spire Arc is going to be sending the team off to escort the ambassador, Gwen's dad, off to Olympia because they're going to be trying to, there's a war coming and everybody's going to be trying to get the Olympians on their team. So essentially, everybody's showing up to try and beg bribers or steal the Olympian support, as well as a bunch of other spires that kind of the region is looking around and saying, well, how are we going to handle this? And maybe we can find some way to avert things before it comes to a war. Except for the people who want the war, who are going to be like, well, maybe we can make things go spectacularly wrong, which. Something went spectacularly wrong. Gee, that happens a lot. But that'll be going on. That'll be going on in the next book, and you'll get to see more of Commodore Pine there because he's one of the Olympian merchant princes. So.
Are we going to find out more about his Fury?
Oh, probably. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey, how you doing?
Excellent. So earlier you actually said that you weren't sure if you actually wrote anything brilliant, and as big of Dresden fan I am. The Codex Alera is brilliant.
Oh.
So
you know I wrote that on the bet, right?
I do.
Okay. Well, as long as you're familiar with that.
It is brilliant, and I can't wait for HBO to Game of Thrones it.
Yeah. That would be cool. The problem is that there's such a high magic threshold. Because Game of Thrones, you can do that because there's not a ton of magic. You got some dragons and that's about it.
Right.
Everything else is pretty much just standard movie effects. And zombies, but everybody's doing zombies these days. So that's, I think you get them cheaper because there's so many of them. We're mass producing zombies at this point, so the cost has gone down. But as far as that goes, I think I would rather see Fury certainly as like an style animated cartoon because then you could make that and you could blow up nations on anime and it doesn't cost any more than not blowing up nations in anime.
So I actually have a real question that's not just a comment. The Jade Court.
The Jade Court. That's a noun.
Ever since we've heard nothing about them.
Yeah, they're seclusionists. They stay secluded. We might see one of their agents at some point, but I don't think we'd actually see the court doing anything. They're busy, being the center of the cosmos in the Yangtze Valley, at least as far as they're concerned. So.
All right.
All right.
Thank you. You're up.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this is my fiance, Kate Crow.
My question actually isn't about Amaracus.
Okay, that's a good start.
So I want to know if Kitai and Tavi ever have a girl that they name Kavi.
Kavi is my assistant. She's like our personal assistant in Denver.
She also has silver hair and green eyes.
And she has silver hair and green eyes. Oh my God, she does. So be it, canon. How you doing, sir?
Doing great, thanks. So my question is concerning Dresden's daughter, Maggie. So I know it might be in the ballpark of can't tell, can't say anything, but it's kind of a what if she was a practitioner at one day and became one, would she be more on the end with Dresden with making, or with evocation, making things go boom really easy, or would we see another more Molly that's good with veils and delicate stuff? What would you think?
Oh God, well, we've already got people who do that, so I'd have to come up with something different for her. I'm honestly not sure if she's going to wind up a practitioner at all. We'll have to see, because she was born of a half vampire mother, and that's bound to have an effect. And magic is such a force of creation in the way it's meant to be used by mortals, that having that entire destructive vampire nature might not have gone along very well with that at all. That said, I'm planning on as soon as I get my writing schedule back going again, I'm planning on writing a few young adult books that's going to be essentially the Dresden Files take on Hogwarts when Maggie goes off to school. Maggie's going off to St. Mark's Academy of the Gifted and Talented, which Harry always thought should be called St. Mark's Academy of the Resourceful and Talented, because then it would be smart, and instead it's just smacked. But she's going to be, I'm going to be doing this, the project I'm doing with my sister, who's been doing some young adult writing, and so I'm going to take a character, and she's going to take a character, and we're going to go. And plus, she said she's had all her kids go through Catholic schools, so she knows all the inside dirt on Catholic schools. But Maggie is really, she's had a rough time of it. I mean, she's had a lot of trauma. She's got PTSD. She's got anxiety. I mean, she's afraid of. What's that?
Does she have daddy issues?
Well, no, because Harry's not a bad dad. I mean, he's a little busy. Blowing things up, but she genuinely does need the service dog with her. I mean, she has a really hard time relating to people and talking to people, looking people in the eye, and getting along with them at school, except for when people are panicking and everything's on fire, at which point she's fine. I mean, she can just be completely calm during that. She is Harry Dresden's daughter, So. But she's going to go off to school, and what Harry doesn't know, or at least doesn't remember, is that there's essentially a pantheon of monsters that exists, or monsters/creatures that exist, that can only interact with kids and that you forget about when you grow up. So there's all these, there's this culture among the kids of having to deal with these things, because adults can't see them or interact with them or perceive them in any way, so you have to solve the problem yourself. And so that's going to be kind of the challenge, for this series is what they're facing. So you'll see a little bit of that. You'll see a little bit of that in the short story in the section that's from Maggie's point of view. So
awesome, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, something like.
How you doing?
Good. I apologize if this has ever been asked before, but my question was, will we ever find out the identities of some of the beings that are being held captive at Demon Reach, and will there be anyone we recognize?
Yes, indeed, and yes, indeed. Sir?
I'm sorry, that was way faster than I thought it'd be.
Well, he asked a yes or no question. Those go quick.
I was so unprepared. I have a silly question, and
okay.
I have a very sillier question. So my first silly question is about the fairies, Lacuna and Tutu.
Okay.
Who are my favorites. I've raised on fairies. The Zondaward and Cialori. I love them both so much.
Okay.
So somebody's already asked about him, but Tutu seems like he's getting bigger every book.
Huh?
Does that have to do with stature and how many more questions and responsibilities he has that he gets?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's gaining stature among the Fae. I mean,
right. Stature is usually assumed as that guy seems large. He's stature Napoleon, but he's this tall. But Tutu reasonably seems larger.
Yeah.
Everything. So every book he will get taller.
Well, as long as he keeps doing things that that are actually accomplishing something. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, he could get demoted too if he screwed something up spectacularly. I'm not sure Harry would survive that.
My second question was about dragons. Somebody asked about it. Fairfax was mentioned very early on in Deadbeat, and he's a very important character, I think, because there's very few characters that were kind of just known by Dresden that he could not defeat. Fairfax was one. He just spoke his name and he just squashed.
Just part of his name. Oh, yeah.
Right, done. So Fairfax was also mentioned in the last book, where he had a vault and he had to be very careful.
Yeah, his stuff was in there, yeah.
And also, he was handed something where they said those very early on that the handouts, that the nemesis was kind of handed on to people with things. Is that something that's going to...
You have a suspicious mind, sir.
I'm an outsider.
Yeah, okay.
I'm an outsider, so I just have these questions to ruin your books.
All right, yeah.
Well, I don't, if you can't say this, fine, but I just had I asked a bunch of friends and they told me that, I don't know.
So I have given you my answer as much as I will give, so.
Which is maybe?
Which is, I'm not gonna tell you. Yeah, there you go. Look, I can't tell you this stuff now, that's no fun.
Well, I don't blame you at all. I'm just a messenger.
Oh, all right, I understand.
Hi.
Shoot him.
Thank you, very nice to meet you.
I'm probably going to get the same answer. But
Okay.
do you have any plans on finally allowing Harry to have an actual sustainable relationship?
Yeah. Boy, do I have plans. Oh, sorry, I don't usually Vincent Price to people, you know. So, all right, but yeah, I have plans. There's plans. Hello. How you doing?
Vertical.
Okay, excellent.
Question is, are we ever going to see Harry Dresden free of the Winter Night Mantle? And if so, is that going to be a story killer?
Oh, how to answer this the best way I can. Maybe if he survives the trilogy, I'm still not sure he's going to. But we'll have to see. I mean, it's one of those things that I'm not sure that he's going to want to carry around his whole life, because there's just so much stress involved with it. But at the same time, you don't wave at Mab and say hi, we had a good time, see ya, and walk away. You know, that's not who she is. So we'll have to see how it turns out. Some of this stuff, I mean, I know the general outline of the story. Like I know what the headlines look like as the story progresses. You know, that's the best parallel I can give you. But a lot of the specific details and the bylines and so on that are in those articles are they're just like written in Simoleon. You know, so I'm not quite sure what they say yet. So details are stuff that happen as I'm working. So maybe I'm working on it. We'll have to see.
And by extension of his mantle, is his daughter included?
No, Maggie's not included in the mantle. That wasn't part of the deal. So,
thank you.
Yeah, no problem. No. If you're acting for a kid in a magical transaction, that gets put in bold print. You know, I mean that shows up.
I'm sure that you have a lot of people who come up and talk to you about your books that you've read, which you know everything about.
Actually, you guys know way more about my books than I do. No, seriously. By the time I write a book, okay, I'll write it and I'll write the first draft, and then it goes off to the beta readers, and they give me their feedback. So I write another draft that's slightly different. Then it goes off to my editor, and my editor gives me your first remarks, and so there's another draft that makes it slightly different. And then the copy editor gets it, so there's another draft, and then the line editor, and another, and then proofing, and so there's another draft. And by the time I'm done with the book, I've seen about between 7 and 11 slightly different versions of the same story. Now take that and multiply it by 15 books. And so I don't have really in my head an awareness of what actually got printed in the actual books themselves. I've got like this cloud of slightly parallel universes that sort of flows along, and so as a result, I get lost and forget things all the time because, you know, I'll think to myself, well, did I have him do that? Yeah, I'm pretty sure I did. No, Priscilla told me I couldn't have, and I'll go look it up. Oh no, Priscilla told me I couldn't have him do that, and she was the one who knew. So yeah. So I mean, it's you seriously. You guys know the books better than I do. When I need to know something, I go out and look on the fan-generated Wikipedia. Because you guys have only seen the printed version, right? You've only seen the one final version, so you got it much clearer in your heads than I do in mine. So yeah, when I get lost, I'll be like, how many kids did the Carpenters have again? Jeez. Which color were the doors on the damn Beetle? Let me get on the Dresden Files wiki, you know, like that. So, but I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Finish your question, please.
It's fine because of that. I think one of the reasons you pull so many people with such a draw is because what you write, to one extent or another, has changed us. It's changed the way I consider who is my family, for instance. Of all the characters you've ever written, it's not who's your favorite, who's the most important to you?
Look at deep questions. Jeez. Michael. Because without Michael, Dresden would have spun off into an abyss 5 or 6 books ago. I mean, that would have happened without Michael there to manage. So, plus, writing a character like that makes you ask an awful lot of questions about the nature of good and evil and how you behave to attain the ends that you think are good and right. So, yeah, I mean, it's complicated. Issues of faith are tough, and you kind of have to face it at some point in your life. You know what it is you're going to believe in. So. But I think Michael is probably the most important character for that.
Amen. Now, one thing that I love about the Dresden Files in particular is that it's so all-inclusive. You know, you take all world and you look at all the mythologies that are in there, and there's a little bit of everything in there. Now, the one thing that I would love to see in the Dresden Files that I don't think would really fit anywhere else would be aliens.
Would be what?
Aliens.
Aliens.
Like, whether it was in the form of some magical construct that brought down aliens, or if it was actual aliens. But is there any chance of something like that coming into the Dresden?
In my headcanon, because I mean this isn't really something that's been planned, but in my headcanon, there's 2 kinds of encounters with aliens in the Dresden Files universe. One, when the Fae are bored and they want to do something to mess with mortals' heads. That's one way you get aliens. The other way is when they crash, when their high-tech ships get too close to all the damn wizards on this confusing little planet. And that's how Roswell happened in the Dresden Files universe. You know, that was the same time that Morgan was out there messing with. That was the same time Morgan was out there fighting the Skinwalker. And Morgan, it was Morgan throwing magic around that brought the spaceship down. But yeah, so really, I mean, the aliens have basically just hung up a beacon slightly outside the solar system that says, this planet is just too weird to bother with, stay away.
Thank you.
Very well. Hello.
I have a writing question. How would you introduce rhetorical devices and use them correctly in a story?
What kind of rhetorical device?
Any.
I hate rhetoric. I mean, it's important, and you have to learn it to be able to think logically. But I don't like thinking logically. I'm an artist. Well, I mean, you got to introduce it. I mean, really, the only way you can introduce it is the same way you learn it. You have somebody teach it to you, and you have to have somebody. I mean, if I was doing that, it would be in a mentor and a student relationship. So.
Thank you.
Sure. Hey man, how you doing?
How you doing? So, I don't know about the rest of you, but the Dresden Files have made me laugh, made me cry. You know, I've cheered when Harry does something cool and gets away with something. The one thing I really want to know is, I was rereading Turncoat just recently, and the entire library of all the masters from over 1,000 years, are we ever going to see any tales from those?
You're reading tales from those.
No, I mean his Ebenezer's.
Oh, like Ebenezer's journal?
Ebenezer's journal and his master before him. Are we going to see any?
How long do you expect me to live, man? I've been doing this for 2 years. Yeah, but that's what these books. I mean, that's why I put those journals in there, because that's what these books are. They are they're Harry's journals that he writes later on. Got 5 minutes? Okay. But Ebenezer's journals, I mean, the most exciting part of his journals are centered around the 7 Years' War, the French and Indian War, because that's when Ebenezer was the young hothead doing things, and so was Langtree. You know, they were all the senior council wizards were the young passionate punks during the French and Indian War. And so that's something that I'm like, ooh, and I've got all this story written up. George Washington's one of the Knights of the Cross, wielding Esperachius. That was when Washington was a young kid, you know, fighting the French and Indian War on behalf of England and so on. So it would be a ton of fun to write that. And the problem is I kind of got this story that I'm doing right now, so we'll have to, I'll have to get to it at some point. Yeah.
So first, I just want to say thanks for coming out here. I know we had you out here a couple years ago. We love seeing you, and I missed you last time.
Man. Thank you.
So happy to see you again so soon. Okay, so my question is, we know white court vampires are born white court vampires.
They are.
And then they turn. And the black court and the red court both turn people.
Right.
What would happen if a black or red court vampire turned a white court vampire before it had been turned into a full white court vampire?
Ooh.
Would that affect the powers from being a white court vampire, or would they just get the black or red court powers?
I think they would wind up having to duke it out with the white court vampire's hunger, which is always there and always present. It's just sort of quiet until the point at which it emerges. So it would be an issue of the hunger would be trying to stop it from happening, and it would have to break in one direction or another. But it would make for a really, really nasty white court vampire if the hunger won, and it would probably just make for a particularly good-looking black or red court vampire. So,
thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Oh, Lee Sid, how are you doing?
You recognize it? Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Dude, I play League of Legends. Come on. Yeah. I'm a nerd too.
So if this ends up being a one-word answer, I actually have a follow-up to somebody else's questions about Tutu. But so the swords, is this the first time that a sword has been broken and essentially reforged, or is that something that happens regularly?
It hasn't ever happened like this.
Okay.
But swords have broken before and had to be reforged over the course of history. So yeah.
And then in terms of Tutu, if he continues to grow and become a full-on, she-lord or something like that, would his intense loyalty to Dresden create a conflict of interest with either of the courts, and what would be the implications of that?
Well, Toot's a wild thing at the moment. He doesn't have an allegiance to a court. He's got a default allegiance to the Winter Court because Dresden's allegiance is to the Winter Court, because of his deal with Mab. But Toot is essentially considered Dresden's operative and tool. He doesn't really have any standing of his own in particular in any of the courts. That's Dresden that has that standing. And so Toot is like under his aegis, but he doesn't really have any juice of his own yet. So yeah, Mab doesn't really care about Toot. She just considers him one of Harry's implements, like his staff or his blasting rod.
Thank you.
Sure. We're gonna get like one or two more, and then they're gonna kick us out.
So last time you were here, I accidentally was stalking you. It was totally inadvertently creeping on you.
Sure it was.
I didn't mean it, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I ran into you in the hallway when you're on a hoverboard. I ran into you in the hallway again.
Right.
In your panel, I told you I had like a bob I wanted to show you in my bag, and you looked at me like I was going to pull a gun or something. So I walked away. And then outside, you walked out into me and my son and had a weird, awkward conversation.
Yeah, I
and
remember.
I said, okay, so good to meet you, see you. And we both turned to leave, and we're stuck in line to leave the building together. For
Right. So we had that awkward, we already said goodbye.
Really. So my question is, can you share with us a moment where you geeked out about somebody that you were, a fan of?
New York Comic Con 2008. I got to go into the green room with Stan Lee. And I'm sitting there like this, with like this bag of chips, just staring at the other corner of the room. Stan comes rolling in. He's like 88 at this point. He comes rolling in, and then his entourage comes panting after him a few steps later, trying to keep up with him. Because Stan lived in New York a long time. He knows how to walk. And I'm sitting looking at him. I'm like, oh my god. And my editor's like, what's wrong? And I said, there's nothing wrong. But look, that's Stan Lee. Yeah. She says, you should go talk to him. I said, I can't go talk to him. That's Stan Lee. My editor's like, oh my god, Jim, you're such a child. Come on. And she grabs me by the hand and drags me over there and is like, hello, Stan. Hi, my name's Ann Sowers. I'm an editor at Ace Books. I handle a lot of their science fiction titles. And this is Jim Butcher. He's an author and he'd like to meet you. And I'm like, hi, Stan. I wrote a Spider-Man book once. And Stan gets up and he pumps my hand really hard. He's like, Jim Butcher. Hello, Jim Butcher. It's really good to meet you, Jim. I'm going to be able to tell people, hey, I was in the green room at the Comic-Con the other day and I met the famous novelist, Jim Butcher, because let me tell you, I'm a name dropper, Jim. Okay, Stan, you're awesome. Okay, I think we're out of time, guys, but I'm sorry to get the other questions, but thank you very much, and have a good evening.